No matter how aggressively you've optimized your networking code for performance, there's still a huge problematic perf issue that you haven't seen: bloated asset files. My name is Colt McCandless, and if you're not aggressively attacking the size of the assets that you're transferring to your users, you're basically stealing time and money from them. See, sending bloated assets to your users has three big problems. Number one is network speeds. Bandwidth is still a really big problem for most of the people around the world. I mean, not everyone is on 4G, and the slower the network, the longer it takes to download the data, which directly translates to number two: battery drain. The longer the cellular radio is talking to the network, the more battery it'll drain to do so. So bloated files basically burn more battery. And let's not forget number three: cost. A majority of folks out there aren't on unlimited data plans, which means that every bit that they're transferring to their device from your application costs them money, which, if you ask me, is kind of a raw deal for a free application. And unless you've taken a hard, grinding look at the size of the assets that you're sending to your users, they're going to be larger than they need to be. And the two biggest candidates that cause the most bloat: images and serialized data. Now, for images, sometimes the easiest solution is to just change what file type you're using. I mean, if you don't need transparency, avoid using PNG files because they don't compress as well as JPEG and WebP counterparts. And if you are using JPEG or WebP, remember that small changes in image quality can have huge changes in file size. See, you can crank down the quality settings of an image a significant amount before users start to notice any issues. So aggressively finding the right trade-off between quality and size can be a huge win. And this goes doubles for different types of images. Thumbnails occupy much smaller portions of the screen, and thus it's harder to notice visual issues there. You can get by with a much lower quality than, say, a full screen version, where it's easier to see compression artifacts. And resolution is especially important for screen sizes and needs. I mean, there's really no reason to send a 4 megapixel image down to a device and only have it used as a thumbnail, or smaller screen devices that can't possibly display it at that resolution, which is why you should store different qualities and resolutions of the same image on your server so that you can optimize for the smallest possible file to be sent to the users. And if this sounds like too much overhead for you, remember, users are paying to download your bloated files, so shame on you. Now, just as problematic as images is serialized data. JSON and XML are horrible types when it comes to compressed size. I mean, they are super bloated. Look at all this extra stuff that's jammed into these files just to make them more readable for humans. Commas, spaces, quotes, carriage return. Hey, listen, your users don't need to pay to send that data to their device. Instead, you should be leveraging binary serialization formats. Protobufs, nanobuffs, and flat buffers are all accessible on Android and can reduce your data footprint significantly with their own nuanced implementation trade-offs. Oh, and by the way, remember that any of the data you serialize is going to be gzip compressed by the HTTP stack, meaning that you should be adopting a struct of arrays format to help bundle similar typed fields together so that the LZ stage of the gzip compressor can do a better job of finding symbol matches. If you're confused about the sizes of the assets that you're sending around and what it's costing your users, check out the Networking Monitor tool inside of Android Studio or the ARO tool from AT&T. Both provide great information that lets you track issues down. And tracking down performance problems is what we are all about, which is why you need to check out the rest of the Android Performance Patterns content and also join our community on Google+ for great advice from people who've already solved these problems. So keep calm, profile your code, and always remember, perf matters.